past us. We'll get them back here
The
later.
garden boss is
Yep.
going by here. There's a lot of folks coming in. It's the Chicago Flower and Garden Show. Folks are wandering around, seeing things, and sitting in between us and around us here are two of the presenters today, Basil and Begonia. Is that actually? Can I
Ms.
just?
Basil and Ms. Begonia.
That's right.
Wait,
Yep.
which one's Basil? You're Basil.
Elizabeth?
Yes. And Nicole's Begonia.
Okay, you got it. What's this? And actually, their real names are Elizabeth and Nicole.
Right.
And it's Nicole Geldum and Elizabeth Gazaldo.
Yes. Got it.
Okay. Tell us about what does it mean, Basil and Begonia? Who are you? What do you do?
Okay. So the premise of our company is to connect people back to their spaces. So if you live in an urban space, how can we get you outside in your environment? My end is vegetables. So I'm Basil.
Ah.
Yeah.
So, I see. So you've got the edibles and the ornamentals here.
Correct. Yes.
And it wouldn't work as well if you said edibles and ornamentals. It's just there's no way.
Exactly. It could.
It doesn't make a pretty little logo.
Absolutely.
And where do you guys operate out of?
So I'm out of Naperville, primarily the western suburbs, but that's a little bit of everywhere. Oak Brook, we're in Downers Grove, and I live in Bloomington, and which is nice because it connects me to a lot of our local farmers, so we can.
So
source
you're not
things.
you don't really have a brick and mortar building. You're just a design outfit, but you work together. So given that you live in different areas in the Chicago area, you are able to spread the wealth, so to speak.
Absolutely. I would say our home base is sort of our parents' house. Yes, being sisters.
The basement, of
that's
course.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, if I could, I'd be living in my parents' basement right now, too. But
ideal.
Except they're dead, so that's a problem,
that's not ideal. Sorry.
That's okay.
Well, you do garden in your dead neighbor's yard.
That's true. I do garden in my dead neighbor's yard, so everything. And we just had the Stones' Dead song, so we've got everything.
It's connecting together.
Perfect. It's a theme segment.
There you go. Absolutely.
Anything else? So what plants have you killed lately? Can you tell us about that? Actually, seriously, I know you're designers.
Yes. That's okay.
What? Because it's part of, and again, I'm.
What do you think on that?
Yeah, because they probably never kill any plants.
Lawns. Because you get rid of
I'll
lawns.
let Nicole think. One thing that comes to mind is like sometimes when you're helping your friends or your clients like grow things, like forgetting maybe what they may not know. So like we planted baby onions with the anticipation that they would grow, and the client, who is one of our now, she ate them. So she kind of killed them before they got big. So that's as close as I can get.
I'll give you an example that I had. That I was working in a friend's yard. I did their garden for years, and there was one particular spot in the yard where I had a plant die. It was a shrub, and I kept replacing it with other shrubs, and I couldn't get there all the time. In fact, sometimes it'd be months, and I would say, and I'll say Bob, because that's not his real name. Bob, you have to water this shrub. And I would come back, and the shrub would be crispy. And he would say, I watered it. And I say, Bob, you did not water it. I'm looking at the shrub.
Right.
You did not water it. Bob, the dentist knows when you don't floss, okay? Your gardener knows when you did not water your plant.
Yeah,
you probably have
absolutely.
similar things, right?
I do. A lot of overwatering, a lot of underwatering. I do a lot of site checks with new gardens. New gardens that went in last year, site checks start in May. So it'll be interesting to see how everything comes back. And just the success of everything. I'm very passionate about making sure that people feel successful in their garden spaces. So,
and that's Begonia, the ornamental side.
Ornamental
now,
side.
You guys, I would imagine you combine efforts all the time.
Absolutely. That's the mission. The mission is to inspire families to walk into their space and to see it differently than grass, foundation plantings, and a patio. How can we have families walk into their yard and experience something environmentally based with their kids and really live in a space? That's very important.
And pick onions that they haven't eaten ahead of time.
Absolutely. Haven't quite grown yet.
Now, I was reading in your bio, you had sent us some bio material, that you are working with organic farms as well?
We do. I do. Our brother works on one in the Bloomington area, and then we work with another that's Cook Farm, and then we work with Prairie Earth Farm, which is an organic farm in our area.
Okay.
And it's great because we can connect like our farmers, and the plants that we use in our vegetable gardens then come from the farms, and then in a sense then our we're encouraging people to be organic,
to plant organic all through the garden.
Yeah.
We're looking at the cones we're setting up here to keep the
Yes,
camera from
people
being.
who are watching on Facebook got some
I was gonna
selfies
say,
from
Tony,
people walking
I
by.
really don't mind if people walk in front of us. As long as they don't just stand there in front of the camera, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Right. Whoa. And don't butt the camera when you're doing that, Tony. Okay, and you can move that chair out of the way. If people want to go through, that's great. We're cool. No. We wanted, we want all the activity here. We want the hubbub from the flower show. So what do you guys are doing a presentation today.
We are on small space garden design.
On small space garden design.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. What are you going to tell people?
We're going to talk to people about looking into their space and really setting some goals and looking outside of what maybe they thought they could fit in a space and what they can fit in a space, which is a little bit of everything, we believe, in this day and age.
Well, it's a really good point, especially when it comes to edibles
Right.
in your garden. I think you could put a lot more in there than you think.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people have proven that over the years with books like Square Foot Gardening,
Absolutely.
which is the classic on it. As a matter of fact, I had the late Mel Bartholomew on my show.
Did you?
Yeah. Actually, it was a
amazing.
really good
That's
interview. It was because he was, I'm not, well, he's dead. So it's more dead people. So this is
Here
the
we go.
theme that continues. This is great. And it was late in his career, and you could tell he was on autopilot. He had been talking about this for 20 years or 25 years or whatever, and he would launch into these speeches, and I kept throwing him off. I was like sticking a stick in the spokes. I would interrupt him and throw him off, not to throw him off his game, but to get him out of the monologue that he was going into. And so I would ask him these weird questions, and his publicist afterward came up to me and said, wow, that was one of the best interviews I've ever seen, because, it's like you kept him thinking. He was like really working to get the information out. So, it's one of the few times I actually kind of pat myself on the back and say, okay, that was good. And he was great. I mean, and his techniques are wonderful, and I would imagine you teach some of that too, don't you?
We try to, or like buddies. Like you think about even with the
Hold
natives.
the mic just like
Sorry,
that. There we
is that
go.
better?
That's
Yeah,
good.
even with like buddy planting, I know Nicole does companion planting, but it's the same with the vegetables. Like we can tuck basil underneath the tomatoes and they love it. Garden, kind of think about it that way.
What about ornamental friends? Who are the buddies in the ornamental world?
I have a few that I lean on, quite frankly. I love when I see like a bobo hydrangea up against a weigella. I love contrasting colors. I love mass plantings, but I also love switchgrass with purple coneflower. I love the way that moves in the fall. I think it's really important to teach people as we're in their space, which means that our jobs are very focused. We try to walk people through not only the design process, but what it is that is going in their space and how they can tend to it and what benefits the pollinators and how they can, from there, have their gardens spread throughout their yard, really.
And reflect who they are.
Yeah.
I think that's the amazing thing, especially when I look at Nicole's like side of it and her work is you walk into the different yards or gardens that she's designed and they look like that family.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Something I was thinking about as I was writing the blog for this, and by the way, we're talking to Basil and Begonia. You can go to basilandbegonia.com to find out more about their design services. Their names are really Elizabeth and Nicole. Sometimes Nicole and Elizabeth. Depends who's doing what. But something that occurred to me, and I've been guilty of this because I have a tiny garden, and you get to feeling that if almost every gardener wants to put in as many different kinds of plants as possible because you feel like, and especially if you have small space,
Right.
you're like, the problem with that is now you're putting in one of everything.
Right.
And, and I think one of the, probably what you do, and maybe you don't do this, is try to encourage people to have fewer plants and
Right.
more of them.
Right.
So, if you have 3 or 4 masses, really wonderful masses of plants, your garden's going to look better than you have one of everything throughout the garden.
Absolutely. You want that unification. So you want your eye.
But it's really, the point is, how do you teach people that? Because it's so hard for them to think like that.
Right.
I suppose if you come in and say, I'm going to do this for you, but if you're left to your own devices like me,
Right.
it's one of it. Well, yeah, and one of everything.
Well, that's a good point. Sometimes when I kind of lean them towards like a cutting garden. Then I pick out reliable flowers or bulbs that we can do a cutting garden that's a little wild and has its own energy going on. But when it comes to your scape that surrounds your sitting areas and perhaps like your vegetable gardens, they're more contained. So there's areas for crazy and wild, which I'm all about, but then there's some contained areas for the soothing component of design.
Soothing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize gardens were supposed to be soothing.
Yeah.
All right. I've got to put that on my list. No wonder. Maybe that's where I went wrong. Okay, what about the vegetable plantings and plantings?
Mm-hmm.
How much design do you put into that as well?
I think it's a matter of design-wise, assessing someone's yard, assessing, as far as light and things of that nature, where water is available, and then designing like what the shape of that, what lends to that space. So we've had gardens on wheels in people's driveways because they just don't have the yard space for it. We've had gardens
Wait,
What do you mean by
gardens
gardens on wheels?
Yeah.
wheels. Yeah, we
Yeah.
build.
Wait, you get a radio flyer and you put a garden
Exactly. Build cedar structures on wheels,
Casters.
and on caster wheels, and roll them around, and build them.
where they have, so basically a raised bed on wheels.
Yeah.
Wheels.
Yes.
And that's where
Wow.
you're growing the edibles.
Absolutely.
And the good thing about this, because I know a little bit about that, is that if you're in the suburbs or you're in the city, the sun is not always your friend.
Absolutely.
You got to find it. And so
Right.
you can move it different times of the day into
Yeah.
the sun.
Yeah, you can move it as you need to, or if you want to use your driveway on a regular basis for other things, like you can kind of scoot it aside and just try to be flexible. So it
Wow,
works for
so
the
do you
family.
do a lot of those, the gardens on wheels?
On occasion. You gotta-
Really? So where did you get that impetus?
Well, gardeners.com actually was the start, where I was looking at a space where there just really wasn't much green space, but the driveway was really, really big. And so just trying to source some different ideas. We purchased one and then for the client, and then we decided, hey, you know what, we can build some different shapes. So based on that, we were able to build like things that are personalized for the client.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And when you're looking at varieties of, and I want to get to you in a second about that, but going to Elizabeth before we go to Nicole, where are you looking for your fruit and vegetable varieties? Do you go to like the same palette? Do you have tried and true that you love to try out on people, or are you experimenting with that?
Try to go tried and true. So survey the client, like, what do you eat? Because we want it to be purposeful.
Right.
We want them to eat what they grow. And then always try to sneak one plant in where I'm like, I bet you'd like it. Let's just try this one. And
yeah,
sometimes
you're gonna love okra.
you're gonna
really,
love it.
Oh boy, you're gonna love okra.
It's delicious.
And it's
You
gonna
know,
look
and
pretty too.
actually, okra is a beautiful plant.
It's gorgeous.
I
It
say
is.
this all the time about eggplant. I'll grow eggplant because it's a gorgeous plant. Harvest it, maybe. Who knows? It's
Yeah.
just, or give it to a
Give
friend.
it away.
Yeah, exactly. And no offense to you people who love eggplant.
Okra.
Yeah.
I'm not dissing you. Okay, and what about your ornamental varieties?
So my palate's a little softer. I do have people that want
What do you mean by softer?
Well, I tend to my personal palette is calamitha, ornamental onion, again, the Weigella,
Those
the
are good. They're great
switchgrass.
plants.
I
Tough plants.
They are tough plants, but then when we're talking about natives, I again, like Elizabeth was saying, I try to sneak those natives in there because they're reliable. So like turtle head is phenomenal.
Well, yeah.
I mean, so there's just these little pockets of.
I don't know why I don't have turtle head. I've got
I
a
don't know.
shady garden, and
I-
I can't believe I don't have turtle
I've
head.
got the white turtle head and then the purple.
Yeah, and
The purple pink.
I believe him. Actually,
You've just reminded me. This year, turtle head
Yeah.
in the garden.
A
okay?
mass plant.
It's a native.
it's a native,
60.
and
Yeah, and it grows in shade.
it grows in shade. I get at some of the gardens I put in it's partial shade, which gets a little bit of sun. But I always tell people you'll have a surprise come the end of summer and
Exactly.
beginning
You
of
want
fall.
stuff like Triceratops or what's the common name? I can't even remember.
So that is a
Triceratops. It'll come
We'll look
to
it
me.
up.
I'll
Okay.
look it up. All right. Hey, listen, I want to thank you guys for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Nicole Geldum, Elizabeth Gazaldo. They are called Basil and Begonia. You can go to their website, basilandbegonia.com. If you live in the Chicago area, get some tips. If you don't live in the Chicago area, I don't know what to tell you.
English toad lily.
Toad
Toad
lily.
lily.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
I knew it was some sort of amphibian there.
Yep.
All right, we're live at the Chicago Flower and Garden Show, the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki. More guests coming up. Come on down to Navy Pier.
Clear. No garlic or wooden stakes necessary. In a Green Diva Minute, you'll learn more and be on your way to having a deeper shade of green. Energy generation or power plants are one of the largest sources of pollution, contributing to climate change. 5 to 20% of our home electric bill comes